Give us an idea of stuff you go away together that help people make abilities. Yeah, good question. It really varies a lot because we work in so many different verticals. What's the case like healthcare would be, they would look at a lot of health-related data, which in Australia is a little bit more challenging to use or to acquire. It would be looking at incidents of certain types of conditions, and then you're also looking at incidents of it might be other factors related to that. So in this case, it was accessibility. So you're looking at how far distance-wise are people from certain types of ability to get access to healthy food in this case. In Brisbane, they did a similar thing. There was a group called it was partly funded by Queensland Health down in the southwestern part of Brisbane, where they did a similar thing where they looked at mapping chronic disease against a whole range of other factors. So there was access to health resources, so that was one data set. There was access to fast food type outlets. That was another data set. So a lot of those are publicly available, you can get hold of. And they then started using these things in combination with health experts to look at, what are the contributing factors in this scenario, and how can we change policy or other things to positively impact that community, and consequently reduce the burden on the health system. Yep.
Hi. I've got a question. I work for a not-for-profit organisation, and it's always a bit hard to actually demonstrate impact sometimes. Would we be able maybe to access the information that you already have through other sources for a fee to show the impact that we have on health or education? What's your offer for NGOs?
Yeah, okay, so we're a commercial organisation, so obviously we have, our revenue does come from a lot of commercial businesses or from governments. We do have a not-for-profits program, so traditionally a lot of the access would be prohibitively expensive for a not-for-profit to access, but there is a separate program that would enable you to get access to this. In terms of the data, it's a little bit more tricky. Australia is developing a lot of initiatives such as the Open Data Initiative, which is happening at a federal and a state level in various states. I know in Queensland it's certainly happening up there, where you'll have greater access to getting hold of data publicly, and then you'll be able to start to use this. There are also, as an organisation, we do have analysts that we can provide, but again, there are also those in the marketplace that you can contract to do those types of things for you. Us as an organisation, we're really about, we're about the tool sets. We can help you with systems and bringing all those other things together so that you can get a successful outcome in a project. Yep.
Hi. So I was just wondering, if you wanted to work out whether your services, I'm from the government, so this is quite interesting to me, if you wanted to work out whether the funded services were in the right place, so could you do something like the location of the services overlaid with CIFA data, and demographic data and imprisonment rates, and that's what you do, and you'd build up a picture like that?
Absolutely, and that's a very common way that you would use some of the analysis tools, and I think that's the real difference, is that you're not just visualising what's there, you want to see, you want to perform some analysis on that, so you want to determine how far away are certain populations. You want to look at, say, for example, in that case, a drive time. What's the acceptable drive time to a facility that would enable them to get access to that service? And then you can do, rather than just very crude circles around a facility, you can actually do by the road network, exactly how far away. And there's some good examples of how this has saved organisations huge amounts of money in the private sector, particularly when they're trying to service to certain KPIs, when they've got to meet a client within a certain time frame. So that's one example of that, how you could use that.
Could you maybe just give us a little bit more insight into costing, or how we as an organisation, not-for-profit or a social impact organisation, might get access? It seems like there's lots of data sets, but do you have all of those in a data warehouse and we can do what-if queries over them? Or do we have to buy them? Or do we have to construct the underlying, we'd like to see health and we'd like to see location? Could you maybe talk us a little bit through how we might approach that?
Yeah, so there's a few things. Again, as an organisation, we don't do too much on the data side. Again, because most of the clients that we're dealing with already have a lot of that in-house. But there are a number, obviously, where places we can point you towards where that data is available that you can start to use. And there are other commercial organisations who do sell data in Australia. Unfortunately, it's not all freely available in this country. Some of it, has got a commercial banner around it. But there is an awful lot. It really depends on what sort of questions you want to answer as to what sort of data you need to support that answer.
I've got a comment rather than a question, just in terms of place-based impact investment. I've been very interested in that for a while, and with the CIFA data going into visual form, the way I can see something like this working is, to map the CIFA data with the small businesses and social enterprises in place, so that we can actually start to make some analysis about what is investable in a particular region and a particular place. And I think it's for those of us who are interested in impact investment, for me, having just done something like this in a particular region, it's really challenging my perception about what we should be focusing on. When you start looking at visually what the CIFA data is telling us, and you overlay what we can understand about the distribution of social enterprises, and then we understand how in a lot of the most disadvantaged communities they've actually been evacuated from small businesses as well. It just creates such a powerful story that we can also start to really make some inroads into selling that story to impact investors.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really about how you communicate what's really happening. It's like a story in many ways. A map tells a story, and when you have the data and you can show that to someone, a table necessarily is not going to show that unless you want to look into the detail. But if you can show it holistically, and maps are very powerful at communicating a lot of information very rapidly, and that's exactly the case. So you can suddenly see that there are real hotspots of activity or need or anything of that nature.